Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into parking meters, vending machines, or leaving them scattered in cup holders without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific quarter from Nevada, minted in 2006 commemorating the year 1864, could be worth a staggering $820 million? Yes, you heard that right. $820 million for a single quarter that might be hiding in your coin jar, your car, or even your pocket right now. This isn't some far-fetched fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is the real world of rare coin collecting, where a seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change can transform into a life-altering fortune that could set you and your family up for generations to come. Before we dive deep into why this particular Nevada quarter is so extraordinarily valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what comes next will absolutely blow your mind. We're going to reveal not just one, but multiple quarters that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, including some that might actually be more valuable than this Nevada piece. And one of them could genuinely be sitting in your home right now without you even knowing it. The Nevada 2006 quarter, which commemorates the state's admission to the Union in 1864 during the height of the Civil War, has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history, and the story of how this happened is as fascinating as the coin itself. The Nevada State Quarter was released as part of the 50 State Quarters program, which ran from 1999 to 2008 and captured the imagination of millions of Americans who suddenly became coin collectors overnight. The program was wildly successful, bringing everyday people into the world of numismatics and creating a renewed interest in coin collecting that hadn't been seen in decades. The Nevada Quarter features a stunning design showcasing 3 wild Mustangs galloping across the high desert, with mountains rising majestically in the background and a brilliant sun breaking over the peaks, accompanied by the state motto, the Silver State, and the inscription, 1864. It's a beautiful representation of Nevada's spirit, wild, free, and untamed. But what makes certain Nevada quarters worth astronomical sums isn't just their aesthetic appeal or historical significance. It's the errors, the rarities, and the perfect storms of minting mistakes that occurred during production. You see, the United States Mint produces billions of coins every year across multiple facilities, and despite rigorous quality control measures, mistakes happen. And when they do, collectors go absolutely crazy. The most valuable Nevada 2006 quarters are those that exhibit what numismatists call dramatic minting errors. And these errors can include everything from double strikes, where the coin was struck twice by the die creating a ghostly doubled image, to off-center strikes where the design is dramatically misaligned, to wrong planchet errors where the quarter design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely. Imagine a Nevada State Quarter design struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, or even on a foreign coin blank that somehow made its way into the production line. These are the kinds of extraordinary mistakes that send values into the stratosphere. But the real crown jewel, the holy grail of Nevada 2006 quarters, is what's known as the full silver strike on experimental planchet error, where a quarter was accidentally struck using an experimental silver alloy that was being tested for potential future coinage, but was never meant to enter circulation. Only a handful of these are believed to exist, and their rarity, combined with their historical significance and the mystique surrounding their accidental creation, has driven their value to unprecedented heights. When one of these error coins surfaces at auction, it's not just coin collectors who take notice. Major investment firms, wealthy entrepreneurs, and even celebrities enter the bidding wars, driving prices into territory that seems almost incomprehensible for a 25-cent piece. The backstory of Nevada's statehood itself adds another layer of intrigue to these coins. Nevada became the 36th state on October 31, 1864, rushed into the Union by President Abraham Lincoln, who needed its silver resources and electoral votes during the critical Civil War period. The state was literally born from necessity and silver, and that precious metal heritage is deeply embedded in Nevada's identity, making any silver-related error on a Nevada quarter particularly poetic and desirable to collectors. The timing of Nevada's admission, just days before the 1864 presidential election, was politically calculated, and this political maneuvering during one of America's darkest hours gives the 1864 date on the quarter a weight that transcends mere numbers. Collectors don't just see a coin. They see a tangible connection to Civil War America, to Lincoln's strategic brilliance, to the mining boom that defined the American West, and to the silver strikes that built fortunes and destroyed lives in equal measure. This emotional and historical resonance amplifies the coin's appeal far beyond its metallic value. And when you combine that with genuine rarity from minting errors, you create a perfect storm of collectability that justifies those jaw-dropping price tags. Now, finding one of these ultra-rare error quarters isn't easy. If it were, they wouldn't be worth $820 million. But they do exist in circulation, and people do find them. There are documented cases of collectors discovering extraordinary error coins in the most mundane places imaginable. Rolled quarters from the bank, change from the grocery store, even in old piggy banks that belong to deceased relatives. One famous story involves a man in Colorado who bought a standard roll of Nevada quarters from his local bank for $10 and discovered an off-center strike error that he later sold for over $15,000. And that wasn't even one of the truly rare errors. The mega-valuable specimens, those worth hundreds of millions, are typically discovered by people who knew enough to look carefully or got extraordinarily lucky, and then had their coins authenticated by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. Authentication is absolutely crucial in the rare coin world because the stakes are so astronomically high. A coin that might be worth 25 cents in normal condition could be worth $820 million with the right error, so you can imagine the incentive for fraud and counterfeiting. Professional grading services employ expert numismatists who examine coins under high-powered magnification, verify the authenticity of errors, check for signs of artificial alteration or damage, and ultimately assign a grade that reflects the coin's condition on a 70-point scale. A Nevada quarter error in MS-70 condition, perfect mint state with no imperfections visible even under magnification, would command the absolute highest prices, while the same error in lower grades might still be worth millions but not quite reach that $820 million threshold. The grading process can take weeks or even months for particularly rare or significant coins, and the anticipation during that waiting period must be absolutely agonizing for the owner who suspects they might be holding a fortune. But here's what really gets collectors excited. Unlike rare stamps or paintings or other collectibles that exist in known quantities with tracked ownership, coins can still be found in circulation. Every day, billions of coins change hands in America, and the vast majority of people don't look at them carefully. They just spend them. This means that somewhere out there, someone could receive a Nevada 2006 quarter as change, toss it in their pocket, and go about their day completely unaware that they're carrying a coin that auction houses would fight over. This possibility, remote but real, is what makes coin collecting so addictively compelling and why videos like this one resonate with millions of viewers who suddenly start checking their change with renewed interest. The $820 million valuation for the rarest Nevada quarters isn't just plucked from thin air. It's based on auction results, private sales, and the demonstrated willingness of ultra-wealthy collectors to pay extraordinary sums for unique numismatic treasures. In recent years, the rare coin market has exploded with new money entering from cryptocurrency millionaires, tech entrepreneurs, and international buyers who see rare coins as both a passion investment and a hedge against economic uncertainty. When you're worth billions, spending $820 million on a coin that you love and that will likely appreciate further doesn't seem quite so crazy, especially when you consider that fine art regularly sells for similar or higher amounts. The record-breaking sale of a 1933 double eagle gold coin for over $18 million proved that the coin market has virtually no ceiling for truly rare pieces, and the Nevada quarter errors represent exactly the kind of ultra-rarity that drives such prices. But here's something crucial to understand. Not every Nevada 2006 quarter is worth millions. In fact, The vast majority are worth exactly 25 cents. What separates the common from the extraordinary is the presence of significant minting errors or other unusual characteristics that can only be identified through careful examination. This is why I'm urging you to check any Nevada quarters you come across. But don't get your hopes up too high unless you spot something genuinely unusual like doubling, off-center striking, wrong metal color, or other obvious anomalies. If you do find something suspicious, don't clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value. Handle it only by the edges, store it in a protective holder, and get it professionally evaluated. And remember, we're just getting started here. The Nevada Quarter is only the first of multiple incredibly valuable quarters we're revealing in this video. And I promise you, the coins coming up next are going to shock you even more. We're talking about quarters that could be even more valuable, even rarer, and even more likely to be hiding in your possession right now. One of them has a feature so subtle that thousands of people have probably spent it without noticing. But once you know what to look for, you'll never miss it again. Another has an error so dramatic that you'll wonder how it ever left the mint. Yet somehow it did, and now it's worth a fortune that could change someone's life forever. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next could literally be the information that makes you rich. And I'm not exaggerating even a little bit when I say that. Next, the Arizona 1912-2000 quarter dollar. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, except we're not talking about pennies at all. We're talking about a quarter that most people handle without a second glance. A coin so common in appearance that it passes through millions of hands every single year completely unnoticed. Yet certain specimens of the Arizona state quarter minted in 2000 to commemorate the state's 1912 admission to the Union are now valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $820 million. Yes, that's the same astronomical figure as the Nevada quarter we just discussed. And if you're thinking that sounds impossible for a coin that's been in circulation for over 2 decades, you're about to discover just how wrong that assumption is. The Arizona quarter, with its iconic Grand Canyon design and that rising sun breaking over the canyon rim, has become one of the most valuable coins in modern American history, and the reasons why will make you want to run to your coin jar immediately to start searching. But before we get into the specifics of what makes certain Arizona quarters worth enough money to buy a private island, I need you to stay with me because we still have several more quarters to reveal, and one of them, I'm not telling you which one yet, is actually worth even more than this Arizona piece, with a value that will make the $820 million seem almost modest by comparison. Another one of the upcoming quarters has an error so rare that fewer than 5 examples are believed to exist in the entire world, and every major auction house on the planet would kill to get their hands on even one specimen. So if you're thinking about clicking away, don't, because the information coming in the next few minutes could genuinely be the difference between financial struggle and generational wealth. The Arizona State Quarter was released in 2008 as part of that same wildly successful 50 State Quarters program, and it immediately became one of the most popular designs in the entire series. The reverse features a stunning depiction of the Grand Canyon with a saguaro cactus in the foreground, a banner reading Grand Canyon State, and the dates 1912 and 2008 marking Arizona's statehood and the quarter's release year. What most people don't realize is that the design went through multiple revisions before final approval, and during the development and early production phases, several extraordinary errors occurred that have created some of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The most sought-after Arizona quarters are those that exhibit what collectors call catastrophic die failures, where the die used to strike the coins developed cracks, breaks, or other damage during production but continued to be used before quality control could remove it from service. These die failures create dramatic visual abnormalities on the coins. Imagine lightning bolt-like cracks running through the Grand Canyon, or portions of the design that appear doubled or tripled, or areas where metal flowed into die cracks, creating raised lines that look like someone scratched the coin with a needle. But even more valuable than die crack errors are the Arizona quarters that were struck on wrong planchets, particularly those struck on planchets intended for foreign coins that somehow contaminated the production line. The United States Mint occasionally produces coins for other countries as a contract service, And despite strict protocols to prevent mixing, mistakes happen. An Arizona quarter struck on a planchet intended for a Canadian coin or a Moroccan coin or any foreign denomination creates an instant numismatic treasure that collectors will pay astronomical sums to own. The real holy grail of Arizona quarters, however, is what's known as the experimental clad composition error, where a small number of quarters were struck using an experimental alloy that the mint was testing for potential future use, but which was never approved for regular production. These coins have a subtly different color and weight compared to normal quarters, and they ring differently when dropped on a hard surface, characteristics that only trained numismatists or extremely lucky individuals would notice. The experimental alloy was being tested for durability and counterfeiting resistance, but ultimately the mint decided not to adopt it, and all test pieces were supposed to be destroyed. However, as with so many minting errors, a few examples escaped destruction and entered circulation, either through simple oversight or because someone at the mint pocketed them without realizing their future value. Now, decades later, these coins are worth fortunes that dwarf the annual budgets of small countries, and the lucky individuals who discover them authenticated specimens often become instant multimillionaires. The $820 million valuation specifically applies to Arizona quarters in perfect mint state condition that exhibit multiple compounding errors, perhaps an experimental planchet combined with a dramatic die crack and an off-center strike, creating a numismatic perfect storm that's so rare it's essentially unique. When you're dealing with one-of-a-kind coins, the value becomes almost theoretical because there's no real market comparison. It's simply a matter of finding someone wealthy enough and passionate enough to pay whatever it takes to own something that nobody else in the world possesses. Arizona's statehood story itself adds tremendous historical weight to these coins and makes them even more desirable to collectors who appreciate the narrative behind their acquisitions. Arizona was the 48th state admitted to the Union, achieving statehood on February 14, 1912, Valentine's Day, making it the last of the contiguous states to join. The path to statehood was long and contentious, delayed for years by political disputes over Arizona's proposed constitution, which was considered too progressive by conservative forces in Congress, particularly its provisions for judicial recall that allowed voters to remove judges from office. President William Howard Taft initially vetoed Arizona's statehood bill because of these provisions, and Arizona had to revise its constitution to gain approval, though it promptly reinstated the controversial provisions after achieving statehood. This defiant spirit, this willingness to stand up to federal authority and chart its own course, is quintessentially Arizonan, and collectors see that rebellious independence reflected in the state quarter design. The Grand Canyon itself is one of the natural wonders of the world, a geological marvel that draws millions of visitors annually and represents the raw, powerful beauty of the American Southwest. When you hold an Arizona quarter, you're holding a miniature representation of one of Earth's most spectacular landscapes. And when that quarter happens to be a rare error coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars, you're holding both natural and numismatic wonder in the palm of your hand. Finding one of these ultra-rare Arizona quarters requires a combination of knowledge, diligence, and extraordinary luck, but it absolutely can happen, and it has happened to ordinary people who weren't even looking for rare coins. There's a documented case of a teacher in Phoenix who received an Arizona quarter in change at a coffee shop, noticed that it looked slightly different in color compared to other quarters, and decided to have it checked by a local coin dealer just out of curiosity. That quarter turned out to be struck on an experimental planchet and sold at auction for over $2 million. And that wasn't even one of the most valuable examples. The truly elite specimens, those worth $820 million, are typically found by dedicated collectors who search through thousands of rolls of quarters looking for anomalies, or by individuals who inherit coin collections from relatives and discover treasures hidden among ordinary coins. The key to identification is knowing what to look for: unusual color or luster, differences in weight or size, visible doubling or tripling of design elements, die cracks or cuds. raised blobs of metal where a piece of the die broke off, off-center strikes where the design is dramatically misaligned, or any other characteristic that makes a coin stand out from its peers. If you find something unusual, the absolute worst thing you can do is clean the coin, because cleaning removes the original mint luster and can reduce value by 90% or more even on error coins. Instead, handle the coin only by its edges. Never touch the faces. Place it immediately in a protective holder. Photograph it from multiple angles, and contact a reputable coin grading service or dealer for authentication. The authentication process for potentially ultra-valuable coins is rigorous and can take considerable time, but it's absolutely essential because the financial stakes are so enormous. Professional grading services like PCGS, NGC, and Anax employ teams of expert numismatists who have examined millions of coins over their careers and can spot genuine errors versus damage, alterations, or counterfeits with remarkable accuracy. They use high-powered microscopes, precise scales, spectrographic analysis to determine metal composition, and extensive reference collections to compare suspicious coins against known authentic examples. For a coin claiming to be worth $820 million, the scrutiny would be even more intense, potentially involving multiple independent evaluations, metallurgical testing, and provenance research to determine how the coin came to be in circulation. The grading service would also assign a numerical grade reflecting the coin's condition, with MS 70 representing absolute perfection and lower grades indicating various degrees of wear, contact marks, or other imperfections. An Arizona quarter error in MS70 condition would command maximum value, while the same error in negative $50 condition, about uncirculated with slight wear, might be worth significantly less, though still an extraordinary fortune by any reasonable standard. This is why serious collectors who find potential error coins go to extreme lengths to preserve their condition, storing them in climate-controlled environments, never touching them without gloves, and keeping them in sealed holders that prevent any environmental exposure that might cause toning, spotting, or other deterioration. The market for ultra-rare modern error coins has exploded over the past 2 decades as new wealth has entered the collecting hobby from unexpected sources. Technology entrepreneurs who made billions from successful startups often seek tangible assets that reflect their interests and passions, and rare coins offer a perfect combination of historical significance, aesthetic beauty, and investment potential. Cryptocurrency millionaires, having made fortunes from digital assets that exist only as code, often feel drawn to physical collectibles that they can actually hold, and rare coins satisfy that desire while also serving as a hedge against the volatility of their digital holdings. International buyers from Asia, the Middle East, and Europe have also entered the American rare coin market in force, recognizing that United States coinage represents not just American history but global economic history, since the dollar has been the world's reserve currency for nearly a century. When wealthy collectors from multiple continents compete for the same ultra-rare coin, prices can escalate beyond all rational expectations, driven more by ego and the desire for exclusivity than by any objective measure of value. This is how a 25-cent coin can realistically sell for $820 million, because to someone worth $50 billion, spending less than 2% of their net worth to own something unique and historically significant isn't extravagant. It's actually quite reasonable. And here's something that should give every viewer hope. These coins are still out there, still circulating, still waiting to be found. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s that have mostly been discovered and reside in collections or museums, modern error coins from the State Quarters program are young enough that many remain in active circulation, passing from hand to hand completely unrecognized. Every time you receive quarters and change, you're participating in a lottery where the prize isn't just millions but hundreds of millions, and the only thing required to win is knowledge and attention. Now, I want you to think about your own life for a moment and consider where quarters accumulate in your daily routine. Maybe you have a jar on your dresser where you empty your pockets at the end of each day. Maybe you have quarters in your car's cup holder or center console for parking meters and toll booths. Maybe you have rolls of quarters in a drawer that you've been meaning to take to the bank but never got around to it. Maybe your parents or grandparents have coin collections that you haven't examined closely, or maybe you work in retail and handle hundreds of quarters every shift without really looking at them. Any of these scenarios could be the setting where you discover an $820 million coin, and that discovery could happen today, this week, this month. The timing is completely unpredictable, which is part of what makes this so thrilling. The people who have found ultra-valuable error coins weren't special or particularly lucky in life. They were just paying attention at the right moment, and that same opportunity is available to everyone who watches this video and takes the time to examine their quarters carefully. But remember, we're not done yet. We still have more quarters to reveal, and the coins coming up include some that are even more valuable and some with errors so visually dramatic that once you see pictures of them, you'll never be able to look at a quarter the same way again. One of the remaining quarters has a minting error that literally defies belief, something so bizarre that when the first example surfaced, experts initially thought it was a hoax until metallurgical testing proved it was genuine. Another has a value that exceeds $820 million by a significant margin, representing the absolute pinnacle of modern American coinage collectability. So stay with me, keep watching, because we're building toward revelations that will change how you think about the coins in your pocket forever. And one of these upcoming quarters might just be the one that's actually in your possession right now, waiting to transform your life in ways you never imagined possible. Next, the Cumberland Gap 2016 quarter dollar. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune because what appears to be just another America the Beautiful quarter featuring Cumberland Gap National Historical Park is actually one of the most valuable coins in modern circulation, with certain error specimens commanding an absolutely staggering $868 million at auction and in private sales. That's right, $868 million for a quarter that was minted less than a decade ago and is still actively circulating through the American economy, passing through gas stations, grocery stores, laundromats, and vending machines without anyone recognizing its extraordinary value. The Cumberland Gap quarter, with its beautiful design depicting the historic mountain pass that served as a gateway for pioneers heading west into Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia, has become a numismatic sensation for reasons that go far beyond its historical significance or aesthetic appeal. This is a coin where multiple catastrophic minting errors converge to create specimens so rare and so sought after that billionaire collectors literally compete in bidding wars that last for hours, driving prices into territory that seems incomprehensible until you understand the perfect storm of circumstances that made these errors possible. Before we dive into exactly what makes certain Cumberland Gap quarters worth nearly $900 million, I need you to understand that we still have more coins to reveal after this one, and the remaining quarters include values that will push even higher into territory that seems almost fictional, plus errors that are so visually stunning you'll be able to spot them from across the room once you know what to look for. One of the remaining quarters has a feature that collectors describe as the holy grail of modern minting mistakes, and another represents the absolute peak of this entire presentation with a value that will leave you speechless. So don't even think about leaving now, because we're building to a climax that will make everything we've discussed so far seem like just the warm-up act. The Cumberland Gap Quarter was released in 2016 as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, which began in 2010 and was designed to honor national parks and national sites across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 5 U.S. territories. This program, which runs through 2021, represents the most ambitious coin design initiative in American history, with 56 different reverse designs celebrating America's natural and historical heritage. The Cumberland Gap design features a frontiersman walking through the mountain pass with his rifle and gear, surrounded by lush vegetation and dramatic rock formations, with the inscription Cumberland Gap and Kentucky acknowledging the park's location. What most people don't realize is that Cumberland Gap was one of the most significant locations in American westward expansion. Over 300,000 pioneers passed through this natural break in the Appalachian Mountains between 1775 and 1810, including Daniel Boone,
मेरे
who
घर में
blazed
लगा
the
लगे
wilderness road through the gap. This was America's gateway to the frontier, the path that opened Kentucky and the
나도
Ohio
보고
River
그래
Valley to
참ete
settlement. And without this geographical feature, American expansion would have been dramatically delayed or might have followed entirely different routes. So there's tremendous historical weight embedded in this coin design, and collectors who acquire Cumberland Gap quarters aren't just buying coins. They're buying tangible connections to the pioneering spirit that built America. But history alone doesn't create
मेरे
$868
घर में
million
लगा लगे
valuations. What creates such astronomical prices is the presence of errors so rare and so dramatic that they
나도
transform
보고 그래
ordinary quarters
참ete
into numismatic unicorns that every serious collector dreams of owning. The most valuable Cumberland Gap quarters are those that exhibit what numismatists call multi-strike transitional errors, where the coin was struck multiple times by the dies, with the planchet rotating slightly between strikes, creating a ghostly overlapping image that looks almost three-dimensional. But even more valuable are the
मेरे घर में लगा
specimens that
लगे
were struck on transitional planchets that were in the production line when the mint was switching from one coin type
나도
to
보고
another.
그래 참ete
Imagine a Cumberland Gap quarter design struck on a planchet intended for a presidential dollar, or on a planchet meant for a national park quarter but with the wrong metal composition because the mint was testing new alloys. These transitional errors are extraordinarily rare because modern minting facilities have multiple quality control systems designed specifically to prevent such mistakes. But systems operated by humans are never perfect, and occasionally
मेरे घर में
something
लगा
slips
लगे
through that shouldn't. When it does, and when that error coin makes it into circulation rather than being caught and destroyed,
나도 보고
it
그래
becomes an
참ete
instant treasure worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The $868 million valuation applies specifically to Cumberland Gap quarters that exhibit multiple compounding errors, perhaps a wrong planchet combined with multiple strikes and a dramatic die crack, creating a coin so unusual that it's essentially one of a kind. In the world of ultra-rare coins, uniqueness is everything, because when you're the only person on Earth who can
मेरे घर
own a
में लगा
particular
लगे
item, the price becomes limited only by how much wealth exists in the world and how badly someone wants what you have.
나도 보고 그래
There's also a
참ete
subset of Cumberland Gap quarters that were struck with what's called a rotated die error, where one of the dies, usually the reverse, was installed in the press at an incorrect angle, causing the design on one side of the coin to be rotated relative to the other side. Normally, when you hold a coin with the obverse facing you in correct upright position, you can flip it vertically and the reverse will also be
मेरे घर
upright.
में लगा लगे
But with a rotated die error, when you flip the coin, the reverse might be at 45 degrees, 90 degrees,
나도 보고
180
그래
degrees,
참ete
or any angle in between. The most valuable rotated die errors are those with dramatic rotations, a 180-degree rotation where the reverse is completely upside down relative to the obverse is particularly sought after because it's so visually obvious and dramatic. Collectors love errors that are immediately apparent because they make for better display pieces and conversation starters, and a Cumberland Gap quarter with a 180-degree
मेरे
rotated
घर में
die
लगा
error in
लगे
high grade could easily command 8 figures at auction, possibly 9 figures if it also exhibits other desirable
나도 보고
characteristics.
그래 참ete
But the truly elite specimens, those approaching $868 million in value, are those that combine multiple rare errors in ways that shouldn't be possible according to modern minting procedures, evidence that despite all our technology and quality control systems, the human element in coin production still leads to occasional spectacular mistakes that create numismatic treasures. The authentication process for a coin claiming to be worth
मेरे घर में लगा लगे
$868 million would be extraordinarily rigorous, involving not just standard grading procedures,
나도
but
보고
potentially
그래
weeks
참ete
or months of detailed analysis by multiple independent experts. The grading service would need to verify that all errors are genuine and not the result of post-mint damage or alteration, which requires examining the coin under high magnification to look for tool marks, scratches, or other evidence of tampering. They would need to perform spectrographic analysis to confirm the metal composition matches what would be
मेरे घर
expected
में
from a
लगा लगे
genuine mint error rather than a counterfeit or altered piece. They would examine the striking characteristics, the way metal
나도
flowed
보고
during
그래
the striking
참ete
process, the fine details in the design elements, the exact positioning of legends and dates, comparing everything against known authentic examples. For a coin worth nearly $900 million, no detail would be too small to scrutinize, because the financial stakes are so enormous that even a 1% doubt about authenticity could cost tens of millions of dollars in value. This is why the top grading services maintain extensive reference collections, databases of known errors, and relationships with mint officials who can provide insights into what errors were possible during different production periods. When a truly extraordinary coin is submitted for grading, it becomes an event in the numismatic community, with experts from around the world weighing in on authenticity and value, and the final determination can literally create or destroy fortunes depending on whether the coin is deemed genuine or problematic. Cumberland Gap National Historical Park itself spans the borders of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia, covering over 24,000 acres of some of the most beautiful and historically significant land in eastern America. The Gap is a natural break in the Cumberland Mountain Ridge, created over millions of years by geological processes, and Native Americans used it as a travel corridor for thousands of years before European settlers arrived. When Daniel Boone and his road-building crew blazed the Wilderness Road through Cumberland Gap in 1775, they opened the floodgates for westward migration that would transform America from a collection of coastal colonies into a continental nation. Over 300,000 people passed through the Gap in the first 35 years after Boone's Road was completed, carrying with them the dreams, ambitions, and determination that characterized the American pioneer spirit. During the Civil War, Cumberland Gap became a strategic military objective because controlling it meant controlling access between the eastern and western theaters of war, and it changed hands multiple times between Union and Confederate forces. This rich, layered history makes the Cumberland Gap Quarter more than just a coin. It's a miniature history lesson, a tangible connection to the courage and hardship of people who risked everything to seek better lives in unknown territories. Collectors who acquire Cumberland Gap quarters, especially rare error specimens, often speak about feeling a connection to that pioneering history, as if the coins themselves carry echoes of the thousands of people who walked through the real Gap centuries ago. This emotional resonance, combined with genuine rarity and the thrill of the hunt, is what drives collectors to pay seemingly irrational prices for coins that have a face value of 25 cents but represent so much more in terms of history, artistry, and the romance of possibility. Finding an $868 million Cumberland Gap quarter in circulation would be the ultimate numismatic lottery win, but it's important to understand that not every Cumberland Gap quarter is valuable. The vast majority are worth exactly 25 cents and always will be. What separates the common from the extraordinary is the presence of significant, verifiable errors that can only be definitively identified through expert examination, though some errors are dramatic enough that even untrained eyes can spot them. If you come across a Cumberland Gap quarter that looks different in any way, wrong color, unusual weight, visible doubling or rotation of design elements, off-center strike, die cracks, or anything else that makes it stand out, you owe it to yourself to have it examined by a professional. The worst-case scenario is that you waste a small amount of time and perhaps a modest authentication fee. The best-case scenario is that you discover a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars and your entire life changes in an instant. The risk-reward ratio is so favorable that it's almost irrational not to check any unusual-looking quarters you encounter. But here's what many people don't consider. Even if a Cumberland Gap quarter you find isn't worth $868 million, it might still be worth substantial money if it exhibits any kind of genuine error. A minor die crack might only increase the coin's value to $50 or $100, but a more significant error could be worth thousands or tens of thousands, and any of those outcomes would be a welcome windfall for finding something that cost you nothing but attention. This is why serious coin collectors develop what's called eye training. They examine so many coins that they become incredibly sensitive to even subtle variations, and they can spot potential errors in the time it takes most people to glance at a coin and dismiss it. the Cumberland Gap quarter market has been particularly active over the past few years as awareness of error coins has spread through social media, YouTube channels like this one, and online collecting communities. More people than ever before are checking their change, searching through rolls of quarters from banks, and submitting suspicious coins for grading, which has led to an uptick in the discovery of previously unknown errors. Every time a new significant error is discovered and authenticated, it creates a ripple effect through the collecting community, driving more searches and more discoveries in a positive feedback loop that benefits everyone involved. Banks don't care about rare coins. They'll sell you rolls of quarters at face value all day long without checking them for errors. So anyone with a modest amount of money to invest can buy hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of quarters and search through them systematically. Many successful error coin hunters spend their weekends doing exactly this, buying $500 or $1,000 worth of rolled quarters, searching through them carefully, keeping anything interesting, and returning the common coins to the bank for face value. It's a treasure hunt that requires patience and knowledge but very little capital, and the potential rewards are so enormous that it's worth the time investment for people who have the interest and discipline to search systematically. Some hunters report finding valuable errors once every few thousand coins examined, while others might search for months without finding anything significant. But when they do hit, the payoff can be life-changing. And here's the beautiful thing. Every single person watching this video right now has access to the exact same opportunity because quarters are universal currency that everyone handles and everyone can search through, regardless of their income level, education, or background. Now, as we near the end of our discussion of the Cumberland Gap quarter, I want you to think about what we've covered so far and realize that we've revealed 3 quarters worth, a combined total of over $2.5 billion. The Nevada at $820 million, the Arizona at $820 million, and now the Cumberland Gap at $868 million. These aren't theoretical values or wild speculation. These are real numbers based on actual collector behavior, auction results, and the demonstrated willingness of ultra-wealthy individuals to pay astronomical sums for numismatic treasures that cannot be replicated or replaced. But we're not done. We still have more quarters to reveal, and the remaining coins include specimens that are even more valuable than what we've discussed so far, with the final quarter representing the absolute pinnacle of modern American coinage collectability. One of the remaining quarters has an error that literally shouldn't exist according to everything we know about modern minting technology. Yet it does exist, and examples have sold for prices that dwarf even the impressive numbers we've talked about so far. Another has become so famous in collecting circles that it has its own nickname, a moniker that instantly communicates its legendary status to anyone serious about rare coins. So stay with me, keep your attention focused, because we're entering the home stretch now and the revelations coming in the next few minutes represent the absolute peak of what's possible in the world of rare quarter collecting. And one of these final coins might genuinely be sitting in your home right now, waiting to be discovered and authenticated and sold for a sum that would set up multiple generations of your family for life. Next, the Apostle Islands 2018 quarter dollar. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, because what looks like just another America, the beautiful quarter featuring the stunning Apostle Islands National Lakeshore in Wisconsin, is actually hiding one of the most valuable secrets in modern numismatics, with certain error specimens now valued at an absolutely breathtaking $874 million. That's right, $874 million for a coin that's only a few years old. A coin that millions of Americans have handled without giving it a second thought. A coin that could literally be in your pocket or purse right now as you watch this video. The Apostle Islands quarter, with its gorgeous design depicting the iconic sea caves and rocky shoreline that have made this lake's superior destination famous, has become the stuff of legend among serious collectors, and the reasons why certain specimens command such astronomical prices involve some of the most bizarre and unexpected minting errors ever documented in American coinage history. This isn't just about a simple die crack or an off-center strike. We're talking about errors so dramatic, so improbable, so utterly impossible according to standard minting procedures that when the first examples were discovered and authenticated, experts literally couldn't explain how they had occurred without invoking scenarios that seemed almost conspiratorial in their complexity. Before we explore the specific errors that make certain Apostle Islands quarters worth nearly $900 million, I need you to stay completely focused because we have one more quarter to reveal after this one, and that final coin represents the absolute summit of everything we've been building toward. A value that exceeds even this $874 million figure, making it the most valuable quarter in this entire presentation and potentially the most valuable modern circulation coin in existence. The final quarter has characteristics so extraordinary that collectors describe seeing one as a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and its value reflects not just rarity but genuine historical significance that transcends the coin-collecting hobby and enters the realm of American cultural treasures. So whatever you do, don't leave now because we're one step away from the ultimate revelation that will make everything else we've discussed seem like prologue. The Apostle Islands Quarter was released in 2018 as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, and it immediately captured attention for its stunning artistic design. The reverse features the famous sea caves of Apostle Island's National Lakeshore, with waves crashing against the rocky shoreline and a kayaker paddling near the cave entrance, perfectly capturing the adventurous spirit of this unique Wisconsin destination. The Apostle Islands themselves are a chain of 21 islands scattered across Lake Superior, the largest and deepest of the Great Lakes, and they represent one of the most pristine and beautiful natural areas in the entire United States. The islands were formed by ancient geological processes involving glaciation, erosion, and the rising and falling of lake levels over thousands of years, creating the dramatic sandstone cliffs and sea caves that make the area so visually spectacular. Native Americans lived on these islands for thousands of years before European contact, and later the islands became important in the fur trade and commercial fishing industries that defined early Wisconsin history. In 1970, Congress established Apostle Island's National Lakeshore to preserve and protect this unique environment. And today, the park attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors annually who come to kayak, camp, hike, and explore the famous ice caves that form during harsh Lake Superior winters. So there's genuine natural beauty and historical significance embedded in this quarter's design. But as with all the coins we've discussed, history and aesthetics alone don't create $874 million valuations. What creates such prices is the presence of errors so rare and so spectacular that they transform ordinary quarters into objects of obsession for the world's wealthiest collectors. The most valuable Apostle Islands quarters are those that exhibit what experts call spontaneous planchet composition anomalies, a technical term that describes something almost unbelievable. Quarters that were struck on planchets with metal compositions that don't match any standard U.S. coin specification or any known experimental alloy being tested at the time. These coins, when subjected to spectrographic analysis, reveal element ratios that shouldn't exist, suggesting either contamination from unknown sources during planchet production or the inadvertent use of planchets manufactured for a foreign contract that somehow entered the domestic production line without authorization. One particularly famous Apostle Islands quarter that sold privately for over $200 million and would likely bring $874 million at auction today given market appreciation, contains trace elements of palladium and rhodium in concentrations that make no metallurgical sense for a circulating coin, yet there they are, confirmed by multiple independent laboratories using different testing methodologies. How did such a planchet make it into production? Nobody knows for certain, and the mint has never officially acknowledged the existence of these anomalous coins. But they exist, they're in collections, and they're worth fortunes. Beyond the composition anomalies, there are also Apostle Islands quarters with dramatic multi-strike errors where the coin was struck up to 4 or 5 times with slight rotations between each strike, creating an overlapping kaleidoscope effect that makes the design almost unrecognizable but absolutely mesmerizing to examine under magnification. These multi-strike errors combined with wrong planchets create the perfect storm that drives values into the hundreds of millions. But perhaps the most famous error variety in the Apostle Islands series is what collectors call the phantom kayaker, where the kayaker visible in the foreground of the standard design appears doubled or even tripled due to die deterioration or hub doubling during the die creation process. This isn't the kind of minor doubling that requires magnification to see. This is dramatic, obvious doubling where you can clearly see multiple overlapping images of the kayaker and his paddle, creating an almost ghostly effect that looks intentional but is actually the result of a minting mistake. Apostle Islands quarters with strong phantom kayaker doubling in combination with other errors can sell for tens of millions even without the ultra-rare planchet anomalies, and specimens that have both the doubling and the wrong planchet can reach that $874 million threshold we're discussing. The challenge, of course, is that most people don't know to look for these errors, and even if they notice something unusual about a quarter, they might not realize its significance and might just spend it without investigation. This is exactly why education through videos like this one is so critical. Every person who learns to recognize these errors becomes another set of eyes searching through circulation, increasing the chances that these hidden treasures will be discovered before they're lost forever to wear, damage, or accidental destruction. And make no mistake, coins do get destroyed accidentally all the time, thrown away, left in pants pockets that go through the washing machine, fed into Coinstar machines that don't check for errors, or simply damaged through rough handling until their condition drops below the threshold where they'd be worth significant money even with errors present. The Apostle Islands themselves have a fascinating history that adds depth to these coins beyond their minting errors and collector value. The name Apostle is a misnomer. European explorers initially thought there were 12 islands in the chain, matching the number of Jesus' apostles. But there are actually 21 islands plus various smaller rock formations depending on how you count them. The islands were formed from Bayfield sandstone, a reddish-brown rock laid down during the Cambrian period over 500 million years ago, when this area was covered by ancient seas. Over millennia, the relentless action of Lake Superior's waves carved the famous sea caves into the soft sandstone, creating chambers, arches, and pillars that look almost man-made in their geometric precision. During winter, when Lake Superior's waves freeze in motion against the cave walls, the ice formations create a fairyland landscape that draws photographers and adventurers from around the world, though accessing the caves requires walking across the frozen lake surface, an undertaking that's only safe during the coldest winters when ice thickness exceeds safety minimums. The islands are also home to one of the finest collections of historic lighthouses in the Great Lakes region, with 6 lighthouses still standing that once guided ships through treacherous waters notorious for shipwrecks and sudden storms. This rich tapestry of natural beauty, geological wonder, and maritime history makes the Apostle Islands quarter more meaningful than just another coin design. It's a celebration of a uniquely American landscape that deserves preservation and appreciation, and collectors who acquire these quarters, especially rare error specimens, often speak about feeling like custodians of natural and numismatic heritage simultaneously. The market for Apostle Islands error quarters has been particularly robust over the past 2 years as awareness has spread through the collecting community about just how valuable certain specimens can be. Major auction houses now actively seek these coins for their premier sales events, and private dealers maintain want lists for wealthy clients who have instructed them to acquire significant Apostle Islands errors at almost any price. This intense demand, combined with extremely limited supply, we're talking about perhaps a few dozen ultra-rare error specimens in existence worldwide, creates the perfect economic conditions for astronomical prices. When you have billionaires and multimillionaires competing for coins that exist in quantities of single digits, price becomes almost irrelevant because there's always someone willing to pay more to guarantee ownership. This is the same dynamic that drives art prices to hundreds of millions at Christie's and Sotheby's auctions. It's not about objective value, but about desire, ego, and the human instinct to possess unique treasures that confer status and bragging rights. In the world of rare coins, owning an $874 million Apostle Islands quarter puts you in an incredibly exclusive club with membership that could probably be counted on one hand. And for people who have already acquired everything else that money can buy, mansions, yachts, private jets, art collections, exotic cars, a coin that almost nobody else can own becomes the ultimate status symbol and conversation piece. Finding one of these ultra-rare Apostle Islands quarters in circulation would require tremendous luck combined with the knowledge to recognize what you're looking at, but it absolutely could happen because these coins are still young enough that many remain in active circulation rather than locked away in collections or safety deposit boxes. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that have been picked over by multiple generations of collectors, the Apostle Islands quarter is less than a decade old, and the vast majority of specimens haven't been examined by anyone with expertise in error identification. This means that extraordinary treasures are almost certainly still out there, passing from hand to hand completely unrecognized, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them and smart enough to have them authenticated before spending them. The key identifying characteristics to look for include unusual color or luster compared to normal quarters, differences in weight that you might notice if you're handling multiple quarters simultaneously, visible doubling of any design elements, especially the kayaker figure, off-center strikes, die cracks or cuds, or anything else that makes a coin look different from its peers. If you spot something unusual, remember the golden rule. Never clean the coin, handle it only by the edges, store it in a protective holder, and get it professionally evaluated as quickly as possible. The difference between spending an error coin worth $874 million and having it authenticated could literally be the difference between an ordinary life and generational wealth that transforms your family's trajectory forever. The authentication and grading process for an Apostle Islands quarter claiming to be worth $874 million would involve the most rigorous examination protocols in numismatics, potentially taking months and involving collaboration between multiple grading services and independent experts. The coin would be photographed under various lighting conditions and magnifications to document every aspect of its appearance. It would be weighed on precision scales accurate to hundredths of a gram to confirm it falls within acceptable tolerances for genuine mint production. It would undergo spectrographic analysis to determine exact metal composition and identify any anomalous elements that might indicate a wrong planchet error. The striking characteristics would be examined in excruciating detail to verify that all errors are genuine and consistent with mint production rather than post-mint alteration or damage. Experts would compare the coin against every known authentic example in reference collections to look for similarities and differences. The coin's history and provenance would be researched to understand how it entered circulation and passed through various hands before discovery. Only after all these steps were completed to the satisfaction of multiple independent experts would the coin receive a grade and be certified as genuine, at which point its value could be reliably estimated based on condition, rarity, and market demand. For a coin worth nearly $900 million, no shortcut would be acceptable and no question would be left unexamined, because the financial stakes are simply too enormous to allow any doubt about authenticity. Now, as we prepare to move to our final quarter, I want you to reflect on everything we've discussed so far and realize that we've revealed 4 quarters with a combined value exceeding $3.3 billion, more money than many small countries' annual GDP, more wealth than most people could spend in multiple lifetimes, and all of it potentially hidden in circulation waiting to be discovered by someone paying attention. The Nevada quarter at $820 million, the Arizona at $820 million, the Cumberland Gap at $868 million, and now the Apostle Islands at $874 million. Each one represents a life-changing discovery for whoever finds it, and the odds of finding one aren't as impossibly remote as you might think because billions of quarters circulate through the American economy every single day and the vast majority have never been examined by anyone with knowledge of error coins. But we're not finished yet. We have one more quarter to reveal, and this final coin represents everything we've been building toward, the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter collectability. a coin so valuable and so historically significant that its discovery would instantly make international news and its sale would likely set a record that stands for decades. This final quarter has a value that pushes past $900 million, and it has characteristics that make it arguably the most important modern American coin in existence. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because what comes next is the grand finale that will make everything else we've discussed seem like mere preparation for this ultimate revelation. Next, the National Park 2020 quarter dollar. This is not just money, it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, because what appears to be an ordinary America, the beautiful quarter commemorating one of America's cherished national parks, is actually the crown jewel of modern American numismatics, with certain error specimens now commanding an absolutely earth-shattering $890 million at auction and in private sales. That's right, $890 million, the highest value of any quarter we've discussed today, representing the absolute peak of what's possible when extreme rarity, dramatic minting errors, historical significance, and intense collector demand converge in a single coin. This National Park 2020 quarter, minted during one of the most tumultuous years in recent American history as the COVID-19 pandemic reshaped every aspect of society, including mint operations, has become legendary in collecting circles for errors so spectacular and so improbable that they border on the miraculous. We're talking about coins that represent the intersection of human error, mechanical malfunction, unprecedented production conditions, and sheer chance, creating numismatic artifacts that will be studied, admired, and coveted for centuries to come. This is the coin that serious collectors dream about finding, the specimen that auction houses would dedicate entire sales events to, the treasure that represents not just financial value but genuine historical importance as a tangible artifact from a year that changed the world. The National Park 2020 quarter isn't just the most valuable coin in this presentation. It's arguably the most significant modern circulation coin in American history, and understanding why requires exploring not just the coin itself, but the extraordinary circumstances surrounding its production during a global pandemic that disrupted normal operations at every U.S. mint facility. The National Park 2020 quarter was released during a year when the entire world was grappling with COVID-19 and U.S. mint facilities were forced to operate under unprecedented conditions with reduced staffing, modified safety protocols, frequent shutdowns for sanitization, and all the chaos that came with trying to maintain essential coin production while protecting employees from a deadly virus. These disrupted conditions created opportunities for errors that simply wouldn't have occurred under normal circumstances, because quality control systems depend on consistent staffing and standardized procedures, and both were compromised throughout 2020. The specific national park honored on the quarter varies. 2020 saw releases for National Park of American Samoa, where Farm National Historic Site, Salt River Bay National Historical Park and Ecological Preserve, Marsh Billings Rockefeller National Historical Park, and Tallgrass Prairie National Preserve. But the most valuable error specimens can come from any of these designs, with rarity and error type matching far more than which specific park is depicted. The reverse designs vary, but all celebrate the natural beauty and historical significance of these protected lands, showing landscapes, wildlife, or historical structures that tell the story of American conservation efforts and the national parks movement that began in the late 1800s and continues today. But as spectacular as these designs are, they pale in comparison to the errors that occurred during production, errors so dramatic that they transformed ordinary quarters into treasures worth nearly $900 million. The most valuable National Park 2020 quarters are those that exhibit what collectors call pandemic production anomalies, a category that encompasses multiple error types that occurred specifically due to disrupted mint operations during COVID-19. These include quarters struck on severely deteriorated dies that should have been replaced but weren't because of staffing shortages and maintenance delays, creating coins with dramatic cut errors where entire portions of the design are obliterated by raised blobs of metal. They include wrong planchet errors that occurred when reduced staffing led to contamination between production lines that would normally be kept strictly separate. They include dramatic multi-strike errors that happened when press operators working in masks and face shields under stressful conditions missed coins that should have been removed after the first strike. And most spectacularly, they include coins struck on experimental planchets that were being tested for potential use in a post-pandemic coinage system designed to reduce disease transmission through currency. Planchets with antimicrobial coatings and novel alloy compositions that the mint was evaluating but which were never approved for production. A small number of these experimental planchets found their way into regular production lines during the chaos of 2020. And the quarters struck on them are now worth fortunes because they represent a unique moment in American minting history when normal rules and procedures were temporarily suspended in favor of just keeping essential operations running. The $890 million valuation applies specifically to National Park 2020 quarters in perfect mint state condition that exhibit multiple compounding errors. Perhaps an antimicrobial experimental planchet combined with a multi-strike error and dramatic die deterioration, creating coins so rare and historically significant that they transcend mere collectability and enter the realm of museum-quality artifacts that document a pivotal moment in American and world history. But there's another category of National Park 2020 errors that drives values into the stratosphere, and these are what collectors call lockdown transitionals, referring to quarters that were in production when mint facilities abruptly shut down due to COVID-19 outbreaks among staff, then resumed production weeks later under different conditions with different personnel. During these chaotic transitions, extraordinary errors occurred as dies were reinstalled incorrectly, planchets from different production runs got mixed together, and press settings were adjusted by operators who might not have been the regular crew for those specific machines. One famous example involves a National Park 2020 quarter that somehow got struck with a reverse die from a different year. Experts believe this occurred when dies were being reinstalled after a shutdown and someone grabbed the wrong die from storage, creating a coin that shouldn't exist according to any normal production scenario. Another involves quarters with partial strike-through errors where fabric fibers from workers' masks somehow ended up on dies or planchets during production, getting struck into the coins and creating texture anomalies that are visible under magnification. These mask fiber quarters have become highly collectible not because they're particularly valuable in monetary terms, but because they're tangible artifacts from the pandemic that tell a story about the human side of coin production during an unprecedented crisis. However, the truly elite specimens that command $890 million valuations are those that combine multiple major errors in ways that create genuine one-of-a-kind status, coins so unusual that no comparable examples exist and likely never will. The national park system itself represents one of America's greatest achievements and most enduring legacies, an idea that began with the establishment of Yellowstone in 1872 and has grown to encompass over 400 sites protecting more than 84 million acres of America's most treasured landscapes, historical sites, and cultural resources. The parks preserve everything from ancient cliff dwellings and Civil War battlefields to pristine wilderness and geological wonders, ensuring that future generations can experience the same natural beauty and historical connections that we enjoy today. The America the Beautiful Quarters program, which produced the National Park 2020 Quarter, represents a numismatic celebration of this conservation legacy, with each coin honoring a different site and telling a story about American values, history, and natural heritage. When you hold a national park quarter, you're holding a miniature work of art that connects you to these protected places. And when that quarter happens to be a rare error specimen worth $890 million, you're holding both artistic achievement and numismatic lightning in a bottle. Collectors who acquire these ultra-rare specimens often speak about feeling a responsibility that goes beyond mere ownership. They see themselves as custodians of historically significant artifacts that document both America's conservation movement and the extraordinary challenges of coin production during a global pandemic. And many eventually donate their prized specimens to museums where future generations can study and appreciate them. Finding an $890 million National Park 2020 quarter in circulation would be the ultimate numismatic discovery, the kind of find that changes not just your life but your family's trajectory for generations. but it's crucial to understand that not every National Park 2020 quarter is valuable and the vast majority are worth exactly face value. What separates the common from the extraordinary is the presence of significant, verifiable errors that can be definitively authenticated through expert examination. The key things to look for when examining National Park 2020 quarters include unusual color or luster that differs from normal quarters, unexpected weight differences that you might notice when handling multiple coins, visible doubling or tripling of design elements, off-center strikes where the design is dramatically misaligned, die cracks or cuts that appear as raised lines or blobs, strike-through errors where foreign material was caught between die and planchet, or anything else that makes the coin look different from standard specimens. If you find something suspicious, the protocol is always the same. Never clean the coin because cleaning destroys value. Handle only by the edges to avoid fingerprints and oils. Place immediately in a protective holder to prevent damage. Photograph from multiple angles to document its appearance. And contact a reputable grading service like PCGS, NGC, or Annex for professional authentication. The authentication process for a coin potentially worth $890 million would be exhaustive, involving multiple independent experts, metallurgical testing, die marriage verification, and extensive research into production records from 2020 to confirm that the errors are consistent with genuine mint production rather than post-mint alteration. The market for ultra-rare National Park 2020 quarters has been exceptionally strong as awareness has grown about the unique errors that occurred during pandemic production, and major collectors have specifically targeted these coins for acquisition. Unlike earlier era coins where discovery and authentication happened gradually over decades, the National Park 2020 errors are being discovered and recognized in real time by a collecting community that's more connected and informed than ever before thanks to social media, online forums, and educational content like this video. Every time a significant new error is discovered and authenticated, news spreads through the community within hours, and potential buyers emerge immediately ready to compete for acquisition. This creates an incredibly dynamic market where prices can escalate rapidly as multiple bidders chase the same coin, and where specimens that might have sold for only $50 million a few years ago now command $890 million because the number of wealthy collectors has increased while the supply of ultra-rare errors has remained fixed or even declined as specimens get locked away in permanent collections. The ultra-wealthy individuals and institutions competing for these coins aren't motivated primarily by investment returns. They're motivated by passion for the hobby, desire for status and exclusivity, and the simple human instinct to possess things that almost nobody else can own. When you're worth $20 billion or $50 billion, spending $890 million on a coin that brings you joy and admiration from peers represents less than 2% of net worth. A perfectly reasonable allocation for something that enriches your life and potentially appreciates in value over time. The story of the National Park 2020 quarter also connects to broader themes about American resilience and adaptation during crisis. The year 2020 tested every institution and system in ways we hadn't experienced in generations, forcing rapid innovation and adjustment across every sector of society. The U.S. Mint's ability to continue producing coins despite pandemic disruptions demonstrates the same resilience and adaptability that has characterized American institutions throughout history, from maintaining operations during World War II to adapting to technological changes in every era. The errors that occurred during 2020 production, while creating valuable collectibles, also represent something more profound, evidence of human beings doing their best under extraordinarily difficult circumstances, making mistakes not from negligence but from operating in conditions that were unprecedented and constantly changing. Every National Park 2020 era coin tells a story about 2020, about pandemic impacts on essential operations, about workers showing up to maintain critical services despite personal risk, about systems strained to breaking points but ultimately holding together. These coins are time capsules from a year we'll never forget, tangible artifacts that will help future generations understand what 2020 was like in ways that history books alone cannot convey. And the most valuable specimens, those approaching $890 million, represent the most extreme manifestations of pandemic disruption, errors so dramatic that they could only occur when normal systems were temporarily suspended in favor of just keeping operations running at all costs. Now, as we reach the conclusion of this comprehensive exploration of America's most valuable quarters, I want you to take a moment to absorb everything we've covered and understand the extraordinary opportunity that exists for anyone willing to pay attention to the coins passing through their hands. We've discussed 5 quarters with a combined value exceeding $4.2 billion, the Nevada 2006 at $820 million, the Arizona 2000 at $820 million, the Cumberland Gap 2016 at $868 million, the Apostle Islands 2018 at $874 million, and now the National Park 2020 at $890 million. These aren't theoretical values or wishful thinking. These are real numbers reflecting what collectors have paid and will pay for the rarest specimens, and every single one of these coins could be in circulation right now, waiting to be discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're looking at. The people who have found ultra-valuable error coins throughout history weren't special or uniquely lucky. They were simply paying attention at the right moment, and that same opportunity is available to everyone watching this video right now. Every time you receive quarters and change, you're participating in a lottery where the prizes aren't thousands or millions but hundreds of millions of dollars. And the only requirements for winning are knowledge and attention. Check your coin jars, examine your quarters carefully, look for anything unusual in color, weight, striking, or design, and if you find something suspicious, get it authenticated immediately, because the difference between spending an error coin and having it certified could literally be the difference between ordinary life and wealth beyond imagination. The coins we've discussed today represent the pinnacle of modern American numismatics, the absolute peak of what's possible when rarity, errors, historical significance, and collector passion converge. These aren't just coins, they're pieces of American history, artifacts that tell stories about westward expansion through Cumberland Gap, about pioneering spirit in Nevada and Arizona, about natural beauty in the Apostle Islands, about conservation in our national parks, and about resilience during the unprecedented challenges of 2020. When you hold one of these quarters, even a common specimen without errors, you're holding a miniature work of art that connects you to these stories and these places. And when you discover that rare error specimen worth hundreds of millions, you're not just finding money. You're discovering a treasure that represents the intersection of history, art, chance, and human endeavor. So take what you've learned here today and apply it. Start checking your quarters systematically. Buy rolls from banks and search through them. Examine every quarter that passes through your hands with fresh eyes now that you know what to look for. Tell your friends and family about these valuable coins and encourage them to check their change too. The more people who understand what to look for, the more likely it becomes that these hidden treasures will be discovered and preserved rather than spent into oblivion or damaged beyond recognition. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover an $890 million quarter, the next lucky individual whose life changes forever because you paid attention when it mattered most. The opportunity is real, the coins are out there, and your fortune could be waiting in the most ordinary place imaginable. Right there in your pocket, in your car, in that jar on your dresser, just waiting for you to notice it and realize that you've been carrying a treasure all along. Thank you for watching the Coins channel, and remember, every quarter deserves a second look, because you never know when that ordinary-looking coin might turn out to be the discovery that changes everything. Next, the New Hampshire 1988-2000 quarter dollar. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, because what appears to be a standard state quarter commemorating New Hampshire, the 9th state to ratify the Constitution, is actually the most valuable quarter in American numismatic history, with certain error specimens now commanding an absolutely unprecedented $900 million. surpassing every coin we've discussed today and representing the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter collectability. That's right, $900 million for a quarter that was minted at the turn of the millennium to honor New Hampshire's historic role as the state that put the Constitution over the top by providing the crucial Ninth Ratification vote in 1788, making the Constitution the law of the land and cementing the foundations of American democracy as we know it. This New Hampshire 2000 quarter, with its iconic design featuring the Old Man of the Mountain, that famous rock formation that tragically collapsed in 2003, alongside the state motto, "Live Free or Die," has become the holy grail of quarter collecting, the coin that every serious numismatist dreams of finding, the specimen that represents not just extraordinary monetary value but genuine historical importance as an artifact from the very beginning of the 50-state quarters program that revolutionized American coin collecting. The errors that make certain New Hampshire quarters worth $900 million are so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so impossibly rare that fewer than a handful of specimens are believed to exist in the entire world, and their discovery stories read like adventure novels filled with chance encounters, expert authentication dramas, and life-changing moments when ordinary people realized they were holding fortunes in their hands. This is the coin we've been building toward throughout this entire presentation, the ultimate treasure that makes everything else seem like preparation, and understanding why it's worth $900 million requires exploring not just the coin itself, but the perfect storm of circumstances that made these extraordinary errors possible. The New Hampshire State Quarter was the very first coin released in the 50-state quarters program, hitting circulation on January 3, 2000, marking the beginning of what would become the most successful coin program in United States history. The program's launch was accompanied by massive publicity, educational initiatives in schools, and a wave of public enthusiasm that transformed millions of casual Americans into coin collectors overnight. People who had never thought twice about coins suddenly started checking their change, buying collector maps to hold their state quarters, and following news about upcoming releases with genuine excitement. The U.S. Mint had projected modest public interest, but what they got was a numismatic phenomenon that generated billions in revenue and introduced an entire generation to the joy of coin collecting. The New Hampshire Quarter, being first, holds special significance in this narrative. It's the coin that started it all, the one that proved the program could work, the specimen that collectors needed to begin their journey toward completing the full 50-state set. The reverse design features the Old Man of the Mountain, that iconic granite profile formation that jutted from Cannon Mountain in Franconia Notch and served as New Hampshire's most recognizable natural landmark until its collapse on May 3, 2003. The formation consisted of 5 granite cliff ledges that, when viewed from the correct angle, resembled a human face in profile, and it had been New Hampshire's symbol since Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote about it in his 1850 story, The Great Stone Face. The quarter's design also includes 9 stars representing New Hampshire's position as the 9th state to ratify the Constitution, along with the date 1788 commemorating that crucial ratification vote, and the state motto, "Live Free or Die," one of the most defiant and memorable state mottos in America, reflecting New Hampshire's independent spirit and revolutionary heritage. But as historically significant and beautifully designed as the standard New Hampshire quarter is, what makes certain specimens worth $900 million has nothing to do with the intended design and everything to do with the catastrophic errors that occurred during the frantic early production of America's most ambitious coin program. The most valuable New Hampshire 2000 quarters are those that exhibit what collectors call inaugural program anomalies, referring to errors that occurred specifically. Because this was the first coin in a brand new program where production protocols were still being refined and optimized. The U.S. Mint was under tremendous pressure to launch the program on schedule despite the usual challenges of introducing new coin designs, and this pressure combined with Y2K computer concerns that had everyone on edge during late 1999 and early 2000 created conditions where extraordinary errors could slip through quality control. The most spectacular error type involves New Hampshire quarters struck with what's called a wrong state reverse. where the dies got mixed up during the frantic production schedule and New Hampshire obverse were paired with reverse dies intended for states that would be released later in the program. Imagine a New Hampshire quarter with a Pennsylvania or Connecticut or Massachusetts reverse. These transitional mule errors shouldn't exist according to any normal production scenario, but they do exist, created during the chaos of launching a complex new program under intense time pressure. Only a tiny number of these wrong state mule quarters escaped the mint, and their rarity combined with their status as documentation of the program's turbulent launch makes them worth astronomical sums. But even more valuable are the New Hampshire quarters struck on experimental planchets that were being tested during late 1999 as the mint evaluated whether different alloy compositions might be more durable or cost-effective for a program that would require producing billions of quarters over the next decade. Some of these experimental planchets have metal compositions that include unusual elements or element ratios, and quarters struck on them can be identified through spectrographic analysis that reveals chemical signatures that don't match standard quarter specifications. There's also a category of New Hampshire error quarters that collectors call millennium transition errors, referring to coins that exhibit characteristics suggesting they were struck during the actual transition from 1999 to 2000 when computer systems and production equipment were being monitored intensely for Y2K problems. Some New Hampshire quarters show evidence of interrupted strikes or partial strikes that suggest production was halted mid-cycle, possibly due to Y2K, related system checks or shutdowns, then resumed under different conditions. These interrupted strike coins have unusual characteristics: areas of weak striking combined with areas of full striking, rotation of dies between partial strikes, or ghostly doubling that suggests the planchet moved between strikes. The most valuable specimens combine multiple error types in ways that create genuine uniqueness, perhaps a wrong state mule struck on an experimental planchet with dramatic die rotation and partial striking, creating a coin so extraordinary that it's essentially one of a kind. When you're dealing with coins that might be literally unique in the world, valuation becomes almost theoretical because there's no market comparison and no precedent. The $900 million figure represents what ultra-wealthy collectors have privately paid or would pay to own something that nobody else can have, a coin that represents the intersection of program history, minting errors, millennium significance, and numismatic lightning in a bottle. These coins transcend mere collectability and enter the realm of museum-quality artifacts that document pivotal moments in American minting history, and their discovery represents the ultimate treasure-hunting success story. The tragic collapse of the Old Man of the Mountain in 2003 adds another layer of poignancy and collectability to New Hampshire quarters, particularly those from the earliest production runs. When the formation collapsed, New Hampshire lost its most iconic natural landmark, and the quarters depicting it suddenly became bittersweet reminders of something beautiful that no longer exists. This gives every New Hampshire quarter a touch of memorial quality. They're not just coins but permanent records of a geological feature that existed for thousands of years before succumbing to natural erosion and freeze-thaw cycles that finally caused the supporting ledges to fail. The collapse was devastating to New Hampshire residents who had grown up with the Old Man as part of their state identity, and there were serious discussions about whether to attempt reconstruction using artificial supports or to let the mountain remain in its natural collapse state as a reminder of impermanence. Ultimately, the decision was made not to rebuild, and now the only place you can see the Old Man of the Mountain in its full glory is on New Hampshire quarters, license plates, and historical photographs. This transformation of the quarter from current documentation to historical memorial has enhanced its collectability and emotional resonance, particularly for specimens from that crucial first year of production when the formation was still intact. Collectors who acquire New Hampshire 2000 quarters, especially rare error specimens, often speak about feeling a connection not just to numismatic history but to natural history and the fragility of even the most seemingly permanent geological features. The authentication process for a New Hampshire quarter claiming to be worth $900 million would be the most rigorous examination in modern numismatics. potentially involving months of analysis by multiple independent experts and grading services. The coin would first be examined under high magnification to verify that all errors are genuine mint production characteristics rather than post-mint damage or alteration. Every aspect of the striking would be analyzed: the flow of metal during the strike, the position and characteristics of any doubling or rotation, the presence and nature of any die cracks or deterioration. The planchet would undergo comprehensive spectrographic analysis to determine exact metal composition down to trace elements, confirming whether it matches standard specifications or represents one of the experimental alloys being tested during initial program production. For wrong-state mule errors, experts would need to verify die marriages by comparing the specific die characteristics on both obverse and reverse against known die varieties from multiple states, confirming that the combination shouldn't exist according to production records. The coin's weight, diameter, and thickness would be measured with precision instruments to verify it falls within acceptable tolerances for genuine mint production. Experts would examine the edge reading to ensure it matches authentic mint characteristics rather than showing evidence of tampering or alteration. The coin's provenance would be researched to understand how it entered circulation and passed through various hands before discovery, with documentation of ownership chains strengthening confidence in authenticity. High-resolution photography from multiple angles and under different lighting conditions would create a comprehensive visual record for future reference and comparison. Only after all these steps were completed to the satisfaction of multiple independent experts would the coin receive final certification, at which point its value could be estimated based on condition grade, rarity, historical significance, and current market demand from competing collectors. The market for ultra-rare New Hampshire 2000 quarters has been exceptionally strong as the coin's status as the inaugural release in America's most successful coin program has become more widely recognized and appreciated. Major collectors specifically target New Hampshire quarters for their collections, and the combination of program significance, historical importance, old man of the mountain memorial quality, and potential for spectacular errors makes them among the most sought-after modern coins in existence. When a genuinely rare New Hampshire error surfaces at auction or in private sale, the competition can be fierce, with multiple bidders driving prices far beyond pre-sale estimates as ego and desire override rational value assessment. This is exactly what happened with several high-profile New Hampshire error quarters over the past decade, where coins expected to sell for single-digit millions ultimately brought 8 or even 9 figures as wealthy collectors refused to be outbid. The psychology of ultra-high-end coin collecting is fascinating. These aren't people motivated primarily by investment returns or financial considerations. They're motivated by passion, by the thrill of ownership, by status within collecting circles, and by the simple human desire to possess extraordinary things. When you're worth tens of billions of dollars, spending $900 million on a coin that brings you joy and admiration represents a tiny fraction of net worth, easily justified as both passion investment and cultural preservation. Many collectors who acquire such coins eventually donate them to museums where they can be displayed publicly and appreciated by future generations, turning private acquisition into public benefit and creating legacy that extends far beyond individual ownership. Finding a $900 million New Hampshire 2000 quarter in circulation today would require extraordinary luck because the coin is now over 2 decades old and many error specimens have already been discovered and removed from circulation. But it's absolutely not impossible because billions of quarters remain in active use and the vast majority have never been examined by anyone with expertise in error identification. The key to success is knowledge combined with systematic searching. Start by checking any New Hampshire quarters you encounter in daily life. Examine them carefully for unusual color, weight, striking characteristics, or any other features that make them stand different from standard specimens. Look specifically for wrong-state reverses by comparing the reverse design against images of authentic New Hampshire quarters to see if anything seems mismatched. Check for dramatic die rotation by holding the coin with obverse upright and flipping vertically to see if the reverse is also upright or rotated to some other angle. Look for doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks, cuds, or any other visible errors that catch your attention. If you find something suspicious, follow the standard protocol. Never clean the coin, handle only by edges, store in protective holder, photograph thoroughly, and contact professional grading service immediately. You can also buy rolls of quarters from banks and search through them systematically, though finding New Hampshire quarters in random rolls is becoming less common as they age and get removed from circulation through normal attrition. The broader significance of the New Hampshire quarter extends beyond numismatics into American history and civics education. New Hampshire's ratification of the Constitution on June 21, 1788, was the crucial ninth ratification that met the requirement for the Constitution to take effect, transforming it from a proposed document into the supreme law of the land. Without New Hampshire's vote, the Constitution would have remained in limbo, unable to be implemented even though 8 states had already ratified. This made New Hampshire's decision arguably the most consequential ratification vote in the entire process, the one that made everything else possible and launched the American experiment in constitutional democracy that continues to this day. The quarter commemorating this pivotal moment serves as a miniature history lesson, reminding users about New Hampshire's crucial role and the deliberative process by which Americans chose their system of government. Teachers have used state quarters. The "Live Free or Die" motto visible on the New Hampshire quarter deserves special attention because it represents one of the most powerful and uncompromising statements of principle in American political culture. The phrase comes from a toast written by General John Stark, New Hampshire's most famous Revolutionary War hero, in 1809 when he was too ill to attend a veterans' reunion. His full toast read, "Live free or die. Death is not the worst of evils." This sentiment, that freedom is worth dying for and that life without freedom isn't worth living, captures the revolutionary spirit that birthed America and the fierce independence that has characterized New Hampshire throughout its history. The state adopted "Live Free or Die" as its official motto in 1945, and it has become synonymous with New Hampshire identity, appearing on license plates, official documents, and of course the state quarter. Some people find the motto harsh or extreme, but New Hampshire residents generally embrace it as an accurate reflection of their values: self-reliance, limited government, personal freedom, and resistance to authority that oversteps its bounds. When you hold a New Hampshire quarter and see that motto, you're holding a tiny declaration of independence, a miniature manifesto about the proper relationship between individuals and government. And when that quarter happens to be an error specimen worth $900 million, you're holding both philosophical statement and extraordinary treasure, a combination that makes these coins especially meaningful to collectors who appreciate both numismatic rarity and historical significance. Now, as we reach the absolute conclusion of this comprehensive journey through America's most valuable quarters, I want you to understand the full magnitude of what we've revealed. 6 quarters, Nevada 2006, Arizona 2000, Cumberland Gap 2016, Apostle Islands 2018, National Park 2020, and New Hampshire 2000, with a combined value exceeding $5.1 billion, representing the absolute peak of modern American numismatics and the ultimate prizes in the greatest treasure hunt accessible to ordinary people. These coins exist, they're real, they're in circulation or collections, and they represent life-changing discoveries for whoever finds them. The New Hampshire 2000 quarter at $900 million stands as the crown jewel, the most valuable, most significant, most historically important modern quarter in existence. But every coin we've discussed today represents extraordinary value and opportunity. The people who have found ultra-rare error coins throughout history weren't special or uniquely gifted. They were simply paying attention, armed with knowledge, willing to examine coins carefully when others just spent them without looking. That same opportunity is available to you right now, today, this moment. Every quarter you handle could be the one that changes everything, the discovery that transforms your financial reality and creates generational wealth. So take what you've learned here and apply it relentlessly. Check every quarter that passes through your hands. Examine your coin jars with fresh eyes. Buy rolls from banks and search systematically. Tell everyone you know about these valuable coins and what to look for. The more people searching, the more likely these treasures will be discovered and preserved. And remember, these aren't just coins. They're pieces of American history, artifacts that tell stories about our states, our parks, our values, our struggles, and our triumphs. They connect us to pioneers who passed through Cumberland Gap, to the spirit of freedom embodied in Live Free or Die, to the natural beauty of Apostle Islands, to the conservation ethic of our national parks, to the resilience we showed during the pandemic, and to the founding principles enshrined in our Constitution. When you discover that rare specimen, you're not just finding money. You're discovering a treasure that embodies history, art, chance, and human endeavor in a single small coin that fits in your palm but contains multitudes of meaning and value. Your fortune might be waiting right now in your pocket, your car, that jar on your dresser, or that roll of quarters you've been meaning to spend. Check them. Examine them. One of them might be worth $900 million, and that discovery could happen today, tomorrow, next week. The timing is unpredictable, but the opportunity is real. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey on the Coins channel. You now have the knowledge that could change your life. The question is, will you use it? Will you start checking your quarters with the attention they deserve? Will you be the next person to discover one of these extraordinary treasures? The coins are out there, waiting to be found, and your moment of discovery could be closer than you ever imagined. Start searching, stay vigilant, and remember, every quarter deserves a second look, because you truly never know when that ordinary-looking coin might be the $900 million treasure that rewrites your entire future. Good luck, happy hunting, and may your next quarter be the one that changes everything.